Dolls. Babies, their limbs deformed, painted black. Painted black, twisted, misshapen, lovable. This young woman, it's Nadine. She lives in a very dark place, the east side of Madison. Who is this young woman? What drives her? What possesses her to make this art? Who is she? Why does she make these dolls, dollhouses? So unsettling, so upsetting.
Hi, I'm Scoop Perlman. Welcome to another edition of Scoop Perlman's Guide to Art. There's not much I can say about Nadine Mercil. I hope you find her interesting. I did.
I can do whatever I want in my art. I mean, it's like if I were in the public eye, perhaps, I couldn't be quite as free, but I can say or do whatever I want with my art, and that's what I enjoy the most about it. Nobody can edit me.
There's also this reluctance to go truly public with your art that we've talked about before.
I think somebody could just kidnap and put it in a gallery, and then, I'd be like, oh, okay, Then I could have it shown, But I don't think galleries would. I think that's why I can't put my art in coffee houses. I think it would be too offensive to a lot of people. And so part of that, I've boxed myself in. It's like, I know if I use these words that it's going to create some problems for me as far as where I can exhibit my art, but yet I choose to use the words anyways. It's the same thing as, I know if I use Elmer's glue on my art, it's going to fall apart if I move it, but I use Elmer's glue anyway. And I can't not do it. I mean, I sit there and I think, okay, buy some strong glue today. You can do it. I'm like, no, I can only use Elmer's and modeling clay. It's not permanent, but.
Polite. Mm-hmm. Now, you say you don't show this stuff to a lot of people, but, you do show it to some people. Right. How do these people react when, when all they've seen is the shy, polite, timid Nadine?
I think they're a little shocked. I think they're a little shocked by what I do because it seems so dark. There's no spontaneity with me. I mean,
None at all.
I can flow, where you're working, and after a while the painting just sort of takes over, and what you have, the end product, is not what you started out with. But there's no spontaneity. There's no mad dashes of color. I'm very, very controlled in my art. Come on, Steve, ask me a question.
One of the things that I know about you is that you're an alcoholic, and I was wondering how that informs your art.
I'm pretty much in denial about the whole thing, I drank, but, it wasn't that bad, and, it was horrible, but I tend to sort of coat over it, and I don't really, I don't deal with it in my art at all, and when I was drinking, I sucked at making art, I was just too tired. I'd always just pass out, so.
Too sick?
Too sick and too tired, and No energy to make art. None at all. It didn't work out well at all.
Now, sex and religion, they're kind of, if you'll excuse the expression, the seminal themes in your art.
Right.
And did those things come out of your sense of loss from the child you gave up for adoption?
No, I only deal with that with my dolls. With my boxes, I deal more with like things that happened to me, you know. Like if I grew up in an environment where it was sort of violent and my father swore a lot, and I can put those words in my art. But it's like an environment that I create, you know, that seems sort of perverse and dirty, but it's not who I am. It's just what was done to me.
Let's, I don't know, I guess talk about your history with painting. You said you started with that. You started out as a painter.
Yeah, the painting behind us is actually one of the first paintings I ever did.
Uh-huh.
And it was just, it's like I felt a need, like all my paintings had glasses and all my paintings had hats. And they couldn't have real bodies, you know. It was just too much for me to handle. They couldn't be really, you know. They all had to be very thin.
Okay.
So that's
is there anything behind the idea of glasses and hats?
just a safety thing, you know. I'm like I felt safer when my and I was painting basically to have friends in the nursing home when I got old, you know. I'm like, I'll be all by myself and old, so I'll have my paintings. So they're like companions.
Okay. Did they have personalities and names? Mm-hmm.
No, they don't have any names. I'm really compulsive about keeping things neat and clean, and painting can be really messy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to make my art smaller and smaller and smaller, so the pickup would be less and less and less. So you couldn't really tell that I was making art, you know. I never do men. I just can't fathom painting a man. Or, I mean, I do dollhouses and I'll put men in there, but they're always very they'll have little penises sticking out and stuff, you know. They have a certain role, you know, that they play. But for the rest of my art, I prefer to do women. And then I found a store that sold cigar boxes for $3 each, and that's when I went from Fred to these boxes. And that's where I try to make little tiny statements. Like I have my little manger scene, and then the little guy has the word sex on him, you know, and it's pretty benign stuff, you know, it's nothing too. But, you know, the juxtaposition of the items sort of, I don't know, it says something like the black football player who's holding the Irish Scion. And then I made this, it's my husband's nightstand, and I started actually with cigar boxes that were just cardboard, and it slowly started building itself up, you know. So like, I don't know, I thought I started getting a little more shocking, I think. Like I used the word abortion, and I'm like, oh, that's going to create a lot of controversy. But it's just a word, you know. And then I found these little cake letters, and I put, you know, sad girls and dad, you know. And actually, right there in back is a picture of my father, you know. So it all somehow goes back to my dad. And then the little Tampax, because he'd always talk about that at the dinner table. That was like what we talked about at night, so I sort of felt like I should include that in there too. And then like this one, you know, has Cruel Joel fucks Ugly Beth, and Joel's my husband and Beth's his sister, and so, you know, people might not like that idea that I'm putting the two together, but I'm like, they'll never see it, and I don't like his sister much anyway, so there you go. Money and the penis. That's all that matters when you get married, you know.
I was talking about the couple on the back wall.
Oh, them. Yeah, they're turned towards the wall and they're missing half their body, but they're fake. It said a whole idea of couples, you know, oh, look at the cute couple, they're married, but it's just a outside facade. Nobody can be that happy, you know.
And you have the wise man bearing a gift of a dice.
This is still in progress. These areas I haven't completed yet. And then I could show you, well, you move upstairs, you know, and there he is. He's got a soda bottle. And that's sort of, in a way, it's like commercial, you know. It's like the Coca-Cola being
Drink
used
this and get laid.
as a peanuts, you know. And I'm like, well, that makes sense. And there's the whole idea of milk, you know, pure virgin milk. This isn't a welcome home, honey. And it's not somewhere I want to live, you know. My art's not really true. Like, I have a picture of me and my brother-in-law from when I was little, and so I cut it out and hung it up in my dollhouse, and then I put "I was molested" over it. So most people would make the assumption that that's somebody who molested me, but the truth be told, I was never molested. And so I use the words and the images, but they're not necessarily always true.
Talk about your creative process a little bit. How do you, like, say if you're working on a painting,
Right.
where did where did this begin? Where did you get the germ of an idea?
Well, could I talk about my dolls? Because those
Sure.
are more recent. Maybe a painting is kind of in the past.
You can talk about whatever you want.
Well, I started making dolls probably about a year and a half ago.
Uh-huh.
And the reason for that is I like the idea of fullness, like a big belly, but I'm pretty obsessed with weight, so I wouldn't allow that on myself. But with my dolls, it's like they can be, I try to make pregnant baby dolls. The first one I did is the one over here. Actually, this is the first one I did. And they're all just regular dolls that I buy at the thrift store. But the idea of obscuring its head just seemed like I don't know, it just seems sort of like the natural thing to do, to cover up the face and just have it more of a it's more of the feeling I feel. It's not the actual baby doll. It's how I feel about babies, just sort of bound and gagged, kind of. I don't know how to quite put it into words, but it just felt like the right thing to do. It started out real colorful and real bright, and then I just thought of bandages, and so I like that idea of them being very dark and unlovable, because I love them, Although most people wouldn't hang this up in their nursery, they wouldn't give it to a little kid for a doll, but to me they're very interesting, and they're far better to me than a blonde-haired, blue-eyed baby doll might be. There's too many of those.
Too many Aryan baby dolls.
Too many Aryan baby dolls out there. I'm tired of them. They're so benign. There's absolutely nothing scary about these dolls, not in the least bit. People be like, "Oh, that's kind of dark." My counselor was sort of like, "Whoa," but I it's like, no, they're not dark at all. They're just reflections of me, and either there's a scary part of me that I refuse to look at, or else I'm just, comfortable with the dark side. But no, I think they're, the darker they are, the better they are.
Well, I think we kind of have a duty to unsettle therapist types.
I used to have my straw doll hanging on my front door, and I think that kind of made people a little scary. Then I decided to take it down because there's a daycare next door, I know it's eventually going to turn yellow and disintegrate, Probably all this stuff on this doll is actually going to one day just completely fall apart. But it was more just the fact that it's just, a piece of newspaper, It's I didn't go to the store and buy a shiny piece of new fabric or anything,
But it's, by the same token, it's not, the newspaper from when Kennedy was shot.
No,
or something like that.
It's her poofy little party dress, but she doesn't have a lot of money, so that's the best kind of party dress she can have. Before people had art stores, you had to make art out of things you found, and so I feel it's the same thing, I find stuff and I make my art out of it, and that's, I think, good. But I just kept putting more and more and more black paint on it,
Got a lot of black paint done.
because I was very, very, very depressed. And there was just no room for any happiness on that doll. Not a little speck of it.
So, Joel, what's it like being the subject matter of some of these works?
Well, I just don't take it very personally. Although,
But there's some things there that are very personal.
well, yes and no. I mean, I guess the one piece, like I said, that kind of bothers me is the Rick Leslie's Pussy one, which refers to the woman I saw for a long time before I met Nadine. I mean, that one kind of bothers me some. And then
Is that a sore spot in your marriage?
well, not overtly, not overtly, but yeah, apparently it is, yeah.
So, are you encouraging of her art?
For many reasons, I think. I think she's very talented. I think she's very talented. Actually, she's gotten much better over the last couple of years, kind of with the self-destructive stuff. I still remember, it was actually one of my favorite pieces. It was a big furniture piece. What the heck kind of piece? What was the name of that piece of furniture?
Vanity.
A vanity, yeah, vanity. You know, big mirror, and it was a big round mirror, and this big thing, and I mean, it was covered. I mean, it was like the nightstand, only 5 times as big, and I really liked it. And one day she was like, it was just not right, and tore the whole thing apart.
I can relate.
I was like, oh, please don't do this. Please don't do this. You regret it later. And I think she actually did regret it some later. The vanity never really did get rebuilt.
Joel's very honest. And Joel, yeah, I get a little, nothing personal, but I get a little bored listening to Joel because he talks kind of slow and everything's kind of benign and everything's sort of okay, and I'm like, can't you just spice it up a little?
And I envision it blossoming into something like the Veterans Wall, the Vietnam Wall or something, with all the names.
Oh, I'd love all my art surrounding me. I'd have a big tomb, and then put all my art in there, and then me. It'd be a new kind of museum, mausoleum.
Mausoleum museum.
Instead of museum.
Huh.
Because by the time I'm dead, I'll have a lot of art, I think. Oh, I want to be famous and I want lots of money and I just want to live in New York and have a loft and have everyone admire my work. That's my true ambition. It's like I'm scared that won't come true, so I'm like, oh, I don't ever want anybody to see it, but I'm like, $300 is not enough. I want $3 million. I deserve it. I'm good.
I spent a great deal of time thinking about what it is that draws me to Nadine's art. And I really haven't been able to articulate that. It's disturbing. I think that's a good thing for art to be, and unsettling. Nadine lacks some kind of filter on her self-censoring mechanism that a lot of other artists do. I mean, I think there are other artists that tackle the same subject matter, but that use dolls and environments and stuff like that. But Nadine's not some sophomore woman studies major that's deconstructing Barbie dolls. Ho hum. That there's a lot more going on there. I think about what Nadine might be doing if she weren't making this art. And the thought of what that might be, I also find disturbing and unsettling, yet curiously drawn to. That's about all I have to say about Nadine.